All right, stand by. 10 seconds to go.
Talent. Ready, camera.
And cue talent.
3, 2, 1.
Roll for record.
Trump gets dumped for being mean to Mexicans. How's that for some alliteration? I'm John Phillips, and this is The Rundown. The trouble started during the Donald's presidential announcement when he went after illegal immigration. Let's go ahead and take a look and see what he had to say.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
The first Spanish language broadcaster, Univision, came out and said they were upset and weren't going to carry the Miss USA beauty pageant owned by that very man, Donald Trump, the Trump Organization. Now, NBC has dropped a bomb on their own on Donald, saying in a statement, quote, "At NBC, respect and dignity for all people are cornerstones of our values. Due to the recent derogatory statements by Donald Trump regarding immigrants, NBC Universal is ending its business relationship with Mr. Trump," end quote. This sparked a broadside from Trump, who responded with his own statement, colorful as usual. He said, quote, "If NBC is so weak and foolish to not understand the serious illegal immigration problem in the United States, coupled with the horrendous and unfair trade deals we're making with Mexico, then their contract-violating closure of Miss Universe, Miss USA will be determined in court. Furthermore, they will stand behind lying Brian Williams, but won't stand behind people that tell it like it is, as unpleasant as that may be," end quote. All the fighting puts the Miss USA and Miss Universe pageants in a really awkward position. They said, wait, why are we getting punished? Quote, "We're disheartened by recent events, but the show will go on. The Miss Universe organization is built on a foundation of inclusion and fake breasts," but they didn't include that in the statement, a very important part of that, "and continues to be a celebration of diversity and all cultures. This year's Miss USA contestants represent many different ethnic backgrounds, including 6 Latinas, 4 of whom are of Mexican descent," end quote. Now, Trump is reportedly suing NBC for $500 million, and he says NBC didn't want him to run in the first place, and Macy's has joined the party, killing off Trump's clothing line, I didn't even know he had one, and cutting ties. So they're all right to dump the Trump because he's racist and hateful. Or are they trying to silence the ugly truth about illegal immigration and interfere with our political process? To explore this question and much, much more, we're joined by our pal at his home studio in Dallas, Texas, humorist Scott Ott, and here in studio in overcast Southern California, stand-up comic and PJTV contributor Stephen Kruiser. Now, Kruiser, it's funny that this is going on over at NBC, where they had lying Brian Williams, as Trump mentioned in a statement, who got caught fabricating the truth while serving as anchor of NBC Evening News. Yeah. Okay, managing editor as well. They moved him over to MSNBC. Al Sharpton is a guy who was behind the Tawana Brawley rape hoax, who is currently on their MSNBC lineup. They have other people throughout the organization, and the list could go on and on and on, that have problems that results in them still being employed there. I mean, if you look at some of the things that Howard Stern, for example, has said through the years, he's employed by them. Not that I have any problems with what Howard has said, but he said some spicy things. What's so bad about Donald that NBC has to cut ties where they didn't have to cut ties with Brian Williams or Al Sharpton?
This is like Keith Richards saying, "I can't hang out with you, you drink too much." This is absolutely ridiculous, okay? This is, what it is here is that Trump, I'm not a huge fan of Trump politically. You know, I know he's great theater and all. These are the sanest comments he's ever made about any political issue, okay? My biggest problem with the immigration discussion that really isn't a discussion is that the pro-amnesty, pro-illegal immigration people, the open borders people, all pretend it's only the plucky poor people coming across who want to work in hotels. And as people who have spent our lives living close to this border, we know that's not the case. It is drug dealers, it is rapists, it's cartel people, it's people who behead people. There's some nasty people coming across with the good people too. And I'm telling you, the violent people are louder. What Trump did right now was take a nerve, cut it, rub it with sandpaper. He rubbed a raw nerve because he got to the truth right away, and that's why, and they have to shut this down at all costs because it doesn't fit the narrative.
And you know, Scott, this is a populist sort of slant that Donald Trump has on the illegal immigration problem. I was just looking at a poll that Ed Schultz put out with his MSNBC audience, so the most liberal of liberal audiences, but it's a populist audience. 40% of Ed Schultz's audience believes in what Donald Trump said about illegal immigration. You look at the appeal that Ross Perot had when he ran for president, that Pat Buchanan has had during his runs for president. Donald Trump is tapping into that market right now, but it's something you can't say in public. Even though a lot of people think it, it's something that NBC wants everyone to be quiet about if they're associated with them in business. Isn't that true?
Well, as offensive as Mr. Trump can be and was with those remarks, I think, you know, to a certain extent, a lot of people are thinking, gee, how refreshing it would be to have a president of the United States who was insulting people from other countries. I mean, after, you know, 6 or 7 years of having a guy talking smack on America, it might be nice to have somebody just throwing it the other way. You know, I am no fan of Donald Trump. After I read The Art of the Deal years ago, I took a shower with a wire brush. I just felt dirty after reading that book. I think he's a showman, and he knows what will get attention for him. Now, whether this is benefiting him or not is hard to tell. I mean, I don't know how much money he makes in this deal with NBC. I don't know if somebody else is going to pick this up. Maybe he was unhappy being with NBC at all, but he had to know that when he mounted a presidential campaign, that every remark that he made would be scrutinized, especially during his announcement speech, and that he risked offending people. And there are special interests that come together and put pressure on organizations and say, oh, we got to get that guy out of there.
You know what? I want to defend what Donald Trump said, because I think there's a lot of truth to it. If you have zero control over your borders, which we do, if you have zero control over who overstays their visa, which we do, then you have no control over who stays and who goes, like we used to. When we used to send people back at Ellis Island, if they came over and they tested positive for tuberculosis, guess what? Bye-bye. Before the welfare state, if you moved over here and you couldn't cut it, you didn't go on food stamps, you didn't go on welfare, you just went back to your country of origin. Now we have a situation where we have no control over who comes into the country. We kicked out ICE officers from jails here in Los Angeles, other counties throughout Southern California. So we can't deport the gang members. We can't deport the rapists. We can't deport a lot of these people that Donald referred to. And if you don't have a policy where we say, we want you, you, and you, but we don't want you, then yeah, you are going to end up with a lot of people with a lot of problems. So from that perspective, he told the truth, didn't he?
He was quite truthful about this, and it's a slippery slope, too, because the situation you described right there where it starts to get out of control, now you end up, we have a police chief in this city, the second largest city in the country, who upon arrival says, I'm not going to enforce federal immigration laws here. We're not going to check on immigration. Say he's just cavalier now. He's enforcing whichever immigration laws he wants. He's the sole judge and jury about this now. And you have, it destroys their own narrative, because the plucky worker coming over to work in the hotel, why are they all going on? Why are they all getting state benefits now in California? So they're not really. Now they can come over, and it's Europe now, where you can go be on the dole. You can get to a country and just be on the dole as soon as you get there. That's how a little group called Al Qaeda has operated all over Europe for so long. They just go there and they get on the national dole. So it's a situation that isn't getting out of control. It's way out of control, and he was right about that. And you mentioned the populist appeal. He got to dig in about trade too. That's what really goes to the heart of this too. We kowtow over Mexico in ways that we get a lot of, if there's anything going on for oil, it's our relationship with Mexico, because we just bend over backwards for them. Horrible trade deals, horrible immigration policy, we just do whatever. And it's Republican presidents too, not just this one.
How about it, Scott? Are you with us where you think there is a lot of truth to what the Donald had to say?
If there's truth to it, and you know, you guys live a lot closer to the situation than I do. I do live in Texas, but Texas is so big and I'm so far from the border that, you know, I don't really experience that day-to-day sense of people coming across. But I will say this, just because there's a grain of truth to what you say, or just because there's a core of truth to what you say, doesn't mean that you don't say it like a jackass, which is the way he says it. You know, when Mexico sends us their people, you know, they don't send us their best. And then he throws in that little thing at the end where he's like, and maybe some good people too. I assume some good people too. He is not a serious candidate for president, whether he has, you know, truthful things to say or not. And what's probably most disturbing about all this is exactly why the Democrats rejoice that Donald Trump got into the race, because now every single candidate is going to have to address what Donald Trump said about Mexicans and throw the Republican Party and each of the individual candidates completely off their focus and their message.
You know, Donald Trump is now polling at second place in New Hampshire. I took calls, and I've taken calls several days on the radio show about Donald Trump. The public likes him. The talk radio audience likes him.
Yes.
According to the polling numbers, that's scientific, Republican primary voters like him. Does this say more about their affinity for Donald Trump or their distaste for the Republicans running for president right now?
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that he's just not a politician. I think they find that refreshing. He doesn't answer. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. He and Carly Fiorina don't answer questions like politicians. Carly's not getting all of the airtime that Donald is because his singular gift is getting himself on TV whenever he wants to. But it's so I think the fact that he's a non-politician and they find it refreshing is the most important thing. But and to the truth of it, I want to pull out one last statistic here. The immediate pre-Holder Justice Department did a lengthy study and found out that all of the meth and crack trade in southern Arizona was not organic. It all came from Mexico. So it's not like a couple of guys. It's entire black market industries that are being exported from Mexico up into southern Arizona and southern California. So it's not a little bit of truth. He was hitting at the heart of it.
All right, that's all the time we have for today, but now it's your turn. Are you on Team Trump? Or were NBC and Univision right to tell Donald you're fired? Tell us what you think in the comments section below. I'm John Phillips. Thanks so much for watching The Rundown.